So today's video is all about how we ended up doing a CD by Perfect Daze. Stay tuned, I'll tell you more. So, Perfect Daze, brilliant band, based from Ipswich, that operated in the very late 1980s. And in some ways you could say that the Perfect Daze CD was sort of me doing what would become the Boss Tuneage Retro Series when I was sort of like putting my toe in the water now and then with reissues through the Inksplat logo years. Obviously if you've seen some of the early videos where I say about when I got into the scene in the first place, obviously I used to go to gigs at Boston, Indian Queen, and a lot of the Vinyl Solution based bands used to play there, so we'd regularly see sort of people like Sync and Fudge Tunnel, etc. Census Things played there. Those were the kind of bands, so obviously you were sort of then looking at what other bands are on Vinyl Solution, and I'd come across and bought the regular Jailbreak 12-inch first off, and then discovered about the Bubblegum EP as well, and then obviously picked up the Flames 7-inch that they put out on Way Cool, same label as that did Census Things, of course. And obviously the big thing was that Perfect Daze featured Wolfie, who'd been in the Stupids, and the Stupids were kind of, you know, a mammoth influence on me. And obviously I'll speak in depth about the Stupids because there's quite a lot to talk about on later videos when we get to the Stupids. So Perfect Daze, actually, my band Sickbus, our second gig in July 1989, we supported Vehicle Derek and Perfect Daze, and that's where I first met them. And I remember after the gig I actually interviewed them on an old cassette tape for my fanzine where they were all talking about stuff, and I was trying to find that cassette so I could put it in, but it's probably just as well for all of us I can't. They were just a brilliant band, and I remember watching them and thinking, wow, this is brilliant, you know, and really good stuff. And I kept in touch with Wolfie. I mean, I did an interview, well, our band Sickbus did an interview for Groovy Crush Vibe, and I think we were in one of the issues of that, maybe issue 2 or something like that, which was obviously Wolfie's fanzine that he did after Smashed Hits, but before he did Real Overdose. So we kept sort of in touch, and then I remember sort of out the blue, probably about 6 months after that, I think it was saying, well, Perfect Daze, you know, are no more, and we formed this band called Love Junk, and here's our demos, and the Love Junk demos were brilliant. So I asked them to go on the Floor 81 comp LP, and we'd also been speaking with John at Rise, and I'd sent him over Love Junk, and he wanted to do like a 7-inch, so we'd been talking about that, but it didn't kind of happen. So I'd been in contact with the Love Junk guys, you know, constantly. So when I sort of came back, you know, in the late 90s, I sort of, you know, Wolfie was one of the first people I contacted because I knew he was doing Real Overdose, and obviously I wanted to send out stuff for reviews at fanzines. And I think we got talking about it, and it was either him or it could have been Scruff actually contacting me saying, obviously Love Junk were doing stuff with Crackle and In at the Deep End and other labels, so there was sort of no sort of you know, moves to do a Love Junk record on Boss Tuneage, but I think that they contacted me saying, well, would you like to put out, like, we've got all these old unreleased demos and stuff of Perfect Daze, would you like to put that out? And I jumped at the chance. It was like, yeah, absolutely. So I think in some ways Perfect Daze were kind of a bit, slightly forgotten band by people, because obviously Senseless Things and Mega City 4 in a way would steal their thunder, but they were kind of there at the time as well. And I don't think for whatever reason they were as well known as, so basically Perfect Daze used to headline, and Mega City 4 and Senseless Things in the early days would support them, and then it all sort of flipped round, and by the time they got to Love Junk they were supporting Senseless Things and Mega City 4 for whatever reason. I think that sort of Perfect Daze, from what I can tell, was basically a group of people who used to go drinking in the pub together, who just got together and formed a band, and it's obviously it's quite interesting, the people who were in Perfect Daze, where they came from and what they went on to do. So I think the earliest incarnation of Perfect Daze actually featured Marty as well from the Stupids, as well as Ollie, who was drumming for ENT at the time. So it was literally, a collection of people based in Ipswich. I think Marty left before they were recording anything. A guy called Colin then played guitar, and then he was replaced, I believe, after the first 12-inch by John Roscoe. So the lineup that was sort of like, the regular Jailbreak and Flames era of the group was Tim on drums, Lawrence on vocals, Wolfie on bass, Scruff on guitar and vocals, and John on second guitar, lead guitar. And from that lineup, obviously, when the band, I think that half the band moved to London, the other half were in Ipswich, and it all kind of fizzled out. And that's when Love Junk came around. So Scruff and Wolfie, who was still in Ipswich, formed Love Junk at that time. John had moved to London, he joined Sync, and then would be in Big Ray. Lawrence had obviously sung for Sync as well on their early releases, but had then set up a record label called Roughneck. Whatever happened to that? And then when Roughneck sort of finished, he set up some label called Domino. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard Domino Records, Arctic Monkeys, Franz Ferdinand. Yeah, so that's what's been keeping Lawrence busy for many a year. One of the most diverse and highly successful independent record labels that the UK has ever seen. So that's a kind of fun thing. And obviously John, after he was in Sync, is in the current incarnation of the Stupids, plays bass. They sort of compiled it all together. I remember that, it's fantastic because it's lots of like demo versions, outtakes of stuff, lots of live favourites that they never sort of got round to recording on an album. I think they were criminally underrated at the time, and I think probably, they'd be the first to admit, I think, that if they'd have really put an effort into it, we'd probably be speaking about them the same way we speak about like Mega City 4 and Senseless Things. They'd probably have gone on to have the same level of success. Don't think they were particularly keen on speaking to majors or sort of progressing it more than that. I think it was just a fun thing that the band did. So we compiled 5 Year Scratch, and it came out, I believe, in 2000 or 2001. I remember lots of people moaning about the artwork. Now, so I need to put this thing. So if you've seen the artwork for 5 Year Scratch, it's very, very bitmapped and pixelated. And I remember when we got the artwork in, we did actually I did contact the band and say, look, it's only 72 DPI resolution, it should really be about 300, for it to print properly. And I remember they were very nonplussed about it and said, if it's a bit fuzzy, it'll just look like Husker Du records, it'll be fine. So away it went. And I think, it was hard to get original artwork or, increase it and stuff. So the artwork's always looked a bit shoddy, but, it doesn't deter, really. Fantastic. It was just, and it was I was really chuffed to do it, because I think it's a brilliant snapshot of them. What a great band they were. We did actually, I can't remember, I think we pressed 500 or something like that at the time. But we did need to repress it, because I think we had, additional orders came through much later on, sort of 7 or 8 years later. A distributor suddenly announced they wanted 200 copies of this. I got back in touch with them and we repressed it. And at that point, we actually repackaged it as a Boss Tuneage Retro Series release. It ended up on, slightly different catalogue number and logo, and was kind of re-released in 2007. Perfect Daze. If you're not familiar and you love Replacements, Husker Du, Mega City 4 Census things, then what you're waiting for? Go and check them out now, because you're missing out on a cracking band of that era. That's it for this one. I'll speak to you on the next one.